A campaign of 120 millionaires, which includes Gary Lineker, has called on the government to tax the rich more, and the right wing, again, are having a meltdown.
More than 120 millionaires, including Gary Lineker, Brian Eno and Gary Stevenson, have signed an open letter urging Prime Minister Andy Burnham to tax their wealth. The campaign, called Proud to Pay, says a 2% tax on wealth over £10 million could raise £24 billion a year. The message to the Prime Minister is a simple one. They say, we want you to tax us because we can afford it.
You can almost predict what the right wing have said in response. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch said this: Gary Lineker is very welcome to pay more tax. He can write a cheque to the Treasury. No one is stopping him. Former Top Gear presenter James May made the same argument on LBC.
Can I ask you about one of your fellow now ex-BBCers, Gary Lineker, who has suggested today that he would like to pay more tax. He thinks that millionaires should be taxed more by this new government. Would you agree with him?
No.
Why?
I already pay loads of tax. Am I supposed to volunteer to pay some more?
Well, you can do, of course. You can pay whatever you like to HMRC.
You absolutely can. You could pay your whole income to HMRC if you like. And those people who say, I'd gladly pay an extra 2% tax if it went to the homeless or military veterans or the disabled or whatever, well, there are plenty of people who will take that extra 2% from you if you wish to donate it.
But if, we're going to need money from somewhere, I guess if it's not taxing and it's not borrowing, it's growing the economy.
Yes. There's your rabid capitalism again.
There he is again.
Right-wing commentator Konstantin Kissin thinks more taxes is virtue signalling. Because they don't want to pay more tax, they want to virtue signal and force other people to pay more tax. I don't think Kissin realises those calling for higher taxes would also be paying more, not just other people. But once again, the right wing and media elite are out of touch with the British people. Last year, a poll conducted by YouGov showed that 75% of people supported a 2% wealth tax above £10 million and only 13% opposed. The truth is, whatever your views on certain taxes, whether you think they are viable or not, people want to see the enormous wealth gap reduced. Curtis, I know this is a policy that you do support, but you kind of think it should go further. What do you make of Gary Lineker and others? I mean, there was quite a few millionaires that have kind of come out in support of this, but at the same time, does Kemi Badenoch and James May make a point that they can just give more if they want to?
I mean, yes, they can just give more to HMRC if they want to. But that's not how taxes work or the social contract works. I tell you what, every single year, there's always a debate about taxes, and there's always a debate about, the rich paying more taxes. And it is the most, right-wing, low IQ slop reply when you hear, well, you can donate more to HMRC. It's coordinated. Kemi Badenoch said it, so many right-wingers said it, it's get a new line. You hear that all of the time, right? And it's have more imagination, be more creative with your so-called rebuttals. Of course, it's a ridiculous response because taxes are not philanthropy. Of course, many rich people give to charity. A lot of multi-millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires now do give to charity, and they try and save on taxes, then give to charity. They think that's doing their bit. But as I believe Clement Attlee said, charity is the cold, hard reality of a failed system. Apologies if it wasn't Clement Attlee, but the point stands, which is that if you have charity, that means the political and economic system has not worked. Homelessness is a choice. Poverty is a choice. The rise in food banks is a political choice. So, yes, Gary Lineker, Gary Stevenson, and many others can donate more money to the Treasury, but individuals giving more money to the Treasury will not make a single bit of difference. The point of calling for higher taxes is we need a lot more money. And to have, to respond to a systemic problem, which is gross levels of inequality, like homelessness, that's a systemic thing, with a non-systemic answer by saying just volunteer your money is ridiculous, right? Issues that have come from the system require systemic solutions. And the systemic solution is that everyone in that certain bracket pays more, okay? Otherwise, Gary Lineker will be saying, give more to charity. And what does that do? What does that prove? Nothing. The point is, we need more taxes on the wealthiest. Now, you asked me whether I support wealth tax. I do support a wealth tax, but I have I have problems with it. Not necessarily the nature of the wealth tax itself, but the proposals. A 2% wealth tax on £10 million or more won't do anything. Broadly, because the point of taxes isn't necessarily to bring in money to the treasury. It's to change behaviour. It's to reduce inequality. I don't need to go on about my MMT again, that taxes don't fund public spending. The Bank of England does, and taxes is used to control inflation, right? But yeah, we don't need to tax people more to bring in more money. Of course, we do need to bring in more money when, let's say we spend more money and we don't tax it back. Obviously, inflation will go up. Again, separate economic conversation. But ultimately, we need to have higher tax on the wealthy to reduce inequality, because the super wealthy have so much power. And money equals power. Wealth equals power. We don't live in a democratic system when you've got a few elites, a handful of billionaires that have far more political power than you and I. So billionaires shouldn't exist. End of. So that's why my criticism of the wealth tax is it won't actually do what it needs to be done. However, I understand why they're starting from a 2% wealth tax. Is because you need to change the Overton window. You need to change the political conversation. I mean, no one, absolutely no one, apart from the handful of Marxists, would back a 75% tax on those earning more than 10 million or who have wealth over that at that point. You have to bring people with you. And I think a small 2% wealth tax is a start. But ultimately, it is about reducing inequality. And as Gary Stevenson says, this isn't even a moral thing, it's a mathematical thing. The economy is suffering because of gross levels of inequality. So when I say tax the rich, when he says tax the rich, it's not about saying I'm really envious, especially when the 120 millionaires and patriotic millionaires are millionaires themselves. They've got nothing to be envious of. They're rich themselves. But of course, when you're rich and you call for higher taxes, they call you a hypocrite. When you're poor and you call for higher taxes, they say you're envious, right? It's the same shit you hear over and over again, right? But I'm not even coming at it from a moral angle. I'm coming at it from a point that when the richest get richer and richer and richer, they buy everything. They own everything. Ordinary people can't get on the housing ladder because house prices are astronomical. Like, the ordinary working or middle-class person can't meaningfully contribute to the economy because it's been hoarded by the billionaire class. And that wealth needs to be shared. But when people have so much money, so much wealth and power, then ultimately you have a velocity effect in which the inequality explodes, right? Inequality never is finite, right? It goes up and down, right? But it only goes down with intervention from government policies. And when the government takes a hands-off approach, it explodes. You've got Daniel Priestley, who seems to think that inequality hasn't increased over time. It absolutely has. I mean, you don't even need an academic look at society. You can see that food banks have increased, and we've got the world's first trillionaire. Like, people need to understand that people's purchasing power is getting worse. You don't just look at things in nominal terms. You don't say, oh, well, wages are higher. Yeah, but how far does your pound stretch? That's the point, right? Your wages might go up, but house prices have doubled, tripled, quadrupled, okay? So it's really important to reduce inequality. And I'm very glad that people like Gary Lineker, Gary Stevenson, and people in patriotic millionaires are calling this out, because we absolutely need it. And once again, the right wing and the political media class are so out of touch. Literally 75% of people support a wealth tax. So it's more right-wing slop.
Do you think that, now it does appear that there are more wealthy people, millionaires, people in the spotlight, etc., like Gary Lineker, Gary Stevenson, etc., that are backing this? If more come on board, do you think it is likely that the government are gonna kind of take note and listen and actually act upon it, or do you kind of think it's I don't know, it's just going to be a group of wealthy people that are kind of supporting something, but nothing actually really ends up happening?
Well, I do think there are probably those in Andy Burnham's cabinet, probably Andy Burnham himself, who do think that inequality needs to be addressed. I don't doubt that Andy Burnham wants to see that. But does he have the political strength or even the backbone to come out and support wealth tax? I don't know. I mean, the first 2 years of Keir Starmer's premiership, they never even gave credence to the idea of a wealth tax. So it's not necessarily about whether Andy Burnham or his government thinks that inequality needs to be addressed. I think they do. But are they going to make that fight? Are they going to stand up and say, we need a wealth tax? And I don't think they will. Look, Andy Burnham, it hasn't even been a week since he's been Prime Minister. So people know my politics. People know my views on Andy Burnham. People know that I'm still most likely going to be voting for the Green Party because I think a strong Green Party is still important in the context of Andy Burnham. In fact, even more important. But I'm not going to, I'm going to give Andy Burnham time, of course. But do I expect he's going to come out with a wealth tax? I don't think so. So, but it doesn't matter. Well, no, it does matter. But it's not just going to be a bunch of rich people, speaking to themselves. That's what campaigning is, right? Getting on the airwaves, making this an issue of focus. Like, stop the boats. No one spoke about stop the boats 10 years ago. And then you had political campaigners say stop the boats. And then it made its way to the top. And then you had Rishi Sunak with a sign saying stop the boats. And then you had Keir Starmer saying they'd stop the boats. And guess what? They pretty much stopped the boats. So whether Burnham adopts it or not, it's important to keep pushing for this. It's important for us to keep pushing for wealth taxes. Now, again, my favorite tax, I would say, is a land value tax. It's far better than a wealth tax. Again, I'm not opposed to wealth tax, but I think land value taxes are far better. But the agenda of taxing the rich and reducing inequality is number one. And people support it. And it's only a matter of time that a government is going to adopt it. Is it going to happen in the next year or two? I don't know.